Hey nerds, we are doing a spoiler recap and discussion of Ahsoka Part 6, titled Far, Far Away, is directed by Jennifer Getzinger and written by Dave Filoni, starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Colin.
And I'm Nathan.
We apologize for the little slight technical difficulty at the very beginning of our stream. Apologies to that, but it happens. So this is now part six of the Ahsoka series. So we have now today is part six, and then we have two more episodes after this. And this has been a very adventurous ride. Let's just say that. So our spoiler-free log line for part six is the search for Grand Admiral Thrawn reaches beyond the limits of the galaxy. So, Nathan, what do you think of part six here, Far, Far Away?
I had some mixed feelings about it, but I watched it a few times now. I think that one of my issues is the thing that Star Wars shows keep doing. They keep having shows with a title character and then cutting away to other people.
Hmm.
That being said, I think I enjoyed this a fair amount. I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as last week's, but it was good to actually see Thrawn, actually see some other characters that we've been talking about the entire season. And given that we see these characters, I will forgive it for not having as much of the main character as I would like. Um, Only because unlike when we cut away from the Mandalorian to start dealing with Dr. Pershing in season three, or when
Yeah.
in the Boba Fett when we cut away from Boba Fett to start dealing with the Mandalorian, they at least mention Thrawn in this season, so you expect to see him at some point. So it's not that
Hmm.
much. It's not out of the left field. Um,
Right.
that the focus shift. It shifts to someone that we've been talking about since the first episode. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think I enjoyed it quite a bit. Not as much as last week, but I enjoyed it quite a bit as a Rebels fan. Anyway, because
Hmm.
Thrawn is a very compelling character. As a Rebels fan, I feel like, and we can talk about this when we actually get into spoilers. I feel like they flattened his character a little bit to make him more evil, where he was a little bit more
Hmm.
complicated, and the he's more complicated in the car in the animation, and I haven't read the books, but he's apparently even more complicated in the books.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's how I feel.
Okay. Well, speaking of the books that you're referencing to is the Timothy Zahn book called the Thrawn trilogy.
Hmm.
Um, I do have a copy of it. My brother gave that to me to borrow. I have not read it yet, so I am looking forward to kind of someday reading it. And again, that's not part of canon. That's just like the stuff that was written before Lucasfilm was acquired by Disney.
Hmm.
So they're trying to so Disney is trying to bring snippets of those types of characters from those books in order to kind of again make money, I guess.
Hmm.
So for me, I think that I think I agree with you in some aspects, Nathan, that this episode was definitely really built up. Definitely not as good as last week's episode. I think last week, like I said, it was more of a top three, I would say, of all the kind of post Return of the Jedi, Mandalorian universe type of
Hmm.
stories. So I think that that's kind of where I put last week's episode. This week's episode has some introductions which you have already alluded to,
Hmm.
and I think that they're definitely good situations to be put in. I also think that there's some world building there. That's some really good world building to kind of introduce us to this kind of different realm that they are heading into. So I think that overall, because of that, it just kind of boosts up a little bit of kind of like my rating, which I'll give later. But but yeah, in some areas it's kind of flat, but and also some of the tropes that they've used with the Mandalorian series, they kind of used it again for
Mm,
this episode. So
yeah.
if you watch it, you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. So
Mm.
so that's kind of my thoughts about it. But Nathan, so how would you rate this episode here?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't have as much. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did last week, which I gave a nine, a movie
Hmm.
marathon. So I can't give it a nine. But I wouldn't drop it as low as a seven. So so I'd give it an eight. Because there were some really interesting elements. As the tagline mentions, being in a different galaxy is interesting.
Hmm.
And yeah, and as a Rebels fan, seeing Thrawn was also great. Looks a little bit different than an animation, but it's voiced
Yep.
by the same actor. So yeah, yeah, I give it an eight. Road trip.
So I think I would agree with you for just because of the debut of Thrawn, this kind of boosts us up. But definitely, I would say because I also gave it a nine last week, episode five. So this is probably going to be at an eight as well for me. I think that the performances were definitely compelling in some aspects, and also the world building was great, and also kind of like the adventure was okay. It's not. I mean, like I said, I've seen the adventure before in some ways, but it's still definitely very interesting in that regard. By the way, who portrays Grand Admiral Thrawn? It's Lars Mikkelsen. So that is the brother of Mads Mikkelsen. So those of you that remember, Mads Mikkelsen was in Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're
As
trying.
the
Now they're
Death
trying.
Star
Yeah,
architect. Yeah.
right. Galen Erso.
Mm-hmm.
So there is another family connection, and also yeah. So that's kind of pretty interesting in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. So, again, if you like the contents of this video, please like, share, and subscribe so that we can create more content like this, and also will keep the algorithm happy. So, without further ado, we're just gonna pen to the spoilers. Any thoughts before we go to spoilers?
No, no further thoughts. Just say if you like, if you can only do one, like the video because that makes the algorithm happy and also lets other people find the video. So that yeah, whatever.
Sure, sure.
All right,
All right, so let's go into spoilers then.
all right, all right. So
All right, so we start off actually in this kind of in a meta way. I think that the way that yeah, it's just so meta that so this is with the Purgles. So we left off in the last episode where Ahsoka and Hu Yang was on their ship and they went into the mouth of the Purgle, and so they're now in the mouth of the Purgles. This is probably the only kind of like the first few minutes where Ahsoka and Hu Yang featured, and then the
mm-hmm.
rest of the episode we don't see these two. So
I mean they were referred to
yeah,
later on, but by at the end of
right,
the episode, but yeah, we only see them here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we only see them here, so it's in snippets. It's the orientation of the camera is very similar to when they're on the Falcon. So it's like it's very it's like this is the Millennium Falcon. Even this view right here, it's like the
Yeah. Yeah.
Millennium Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
And so he kind of describes it as a long time ago in a galaxy far, far
Far, far away.
away,
Yeah.
kind of like describing the story. So again, a meta reference to kind of like all the Star Wars stuff that's been happening.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting there. We see here that Sabine is now chaptered in the hyperspace ship, and so kind of like now we're kind of like get the audience is kind of reviewing kind of like what happened to her because we didn't see Sabine in part five. So kind of reiterating, oh, we had a deal and stuff like that. And that's kind of like pretty generic. We had a deal, you're trying to break the deal, that type of sort of thing. So this is that type of stuff that like, okay, we've seen this before. We're not kind of like new to this in some ways. And that's probably why it kind of brought it down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And And so I think, yeah, this is pretty cool though. Kind of like it's kind of like the space ring, but again, we've seen it before in other sci-fi, sci-fi iterations, not just in Star Wars, but we've seen that before, hyperspace ring and stuff.
Well,
But yeah, go ahead.
I thought you were talking about the ring around the planet, which is just dead whales. Which I thought that
Oh,
was interesting.
no, I'm talking about the hyperspace ship.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, this is kind of this. I mean, this is kind of cool. Like the approach to it, you have the dead whale bones and stuff like that.
yeah.
That's kind of cool, though.
It's a good shot. It's a really good shot. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
from far away you don't know. It just looks like a ringed planet, and then um, Balin says that the whales came here to die.
hmm
He says Purdiet is a graveyard, and then they fly in and you actually see the bones. So it's a it's a good transition. So for what he said,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So they are actually approaching the planet. I think that's called Perida. I think it was like
Peridia, yeah, yeah,
Peridia. Yeah.
yeah.
So they're, they're heading down to the planet. It's kind of like they don't know what to expect, but they know that Thrawn is probably somewhere. We don't know yet. We don't know where he is. But even here, it's like you see that the portrayal is very different. The planet itself is very different from any of the planets that we visited so far in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars has been famous about having different sort of planets and things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is kind of reminds me of where they were on Cetos, but also maybe some sort of Game of Thrones type of kind of lighting here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we see the Night Sisters. We see them in live action. So this was actually pretty good. In terms of seeing them in live action, I think that their portrayal was pretty cool overall, and it pretty much matches what happened in the animation. So
In
Nathan,
Clone Wars,
what do
yeah,
you think of it?
yeah.
Yeah, and Clone Wars.
Yeah, they imagine the Night Sisters very well here. They also have the spooky voice where so they're using a voice synthesizer
Yes.
so that whenever they speak, there's like other voices underneath of their voices. So yeah, they sound very creepy and they look very creepy. And you zoom in on their hands here, you can see like you see how the hands are like all weathered, the nails are all weathered and broken. I appreciate the detail there.
Right, right. And the last that we heard of the Night Sisters, they were destroyed, I think, by the Empire, and they was presumed destroyed by the
Mm-hmm.
Empire, and
Mm-hmm.
they were on they destroyed kind of like the world on Dathomir, and
Dathomir,
so they were yep, and they were referencing how the ancestors of the Night Sisters were actually settled here before, and so you kind of get the sense of there's some like ominous kind of feeling here because they're kind of in unknown territory, uncharted territory, and here I kind of appreciated the conversation between Shin and Balin
yeah,
here,
yeah.
kind of like almost like the audience is in some ways we are them in some ways, kind of like getting our bearings straight and stuff like that. So I kind of like this conversation actually,
Mm-hmm.
and just like stories are stories, and Shin's kind of like being a little bit more cynical than what Balin is going through right now.
Well,
And even though,
it's interesting because she's cynical about like the stories. She thinks that it's just stories, and he's cynical
yeah,
about like the. It's funny like what he's saying here is very similar to what uh um Daenerys said about breaking the wheel. And like at the beginning of Game of Thrones, like he's like the cycle goes on and on. Evil takes over, and
yeah,
then it's defeated and it takes over again. And we've seen that in Star Wars, right? With like the Empire was destroyed, and then in the new trilogy, the First Order rose, and he said he wants to break the wheel.
hmm
Basically, he wants to break the cycle. So that was a very
right,
interesting part of the everything that Balin's doing, which is and this has been the case the entire season, which is all more sad that Raventon is passed away because I would like to have
hmm
seen him in the future in the movies or in another season of this. He's always good. Everything he has to say, and it's like he's always choosing his words very carefully and
hmm
yeah, and you don't know what his plan is, but he you can think you get a sense that he's been thinking about it for years. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So yeah, and almost like I think later on you'll get to hear him like it's almost like it's a new beginning. And like you said,
Hmm.
he's seen the hamster wheel of the transfer of power going
Hmm.
back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and he's like, this is finally where hopefully we can break that cycle. It's like you
Hmm.
said. And so here, Sabine is again imprisoned and trying to use the force to try to break free and escape. Again, it's kind of like we've seen this kind of before in other iterations, but now in this shot, I thought that the Purga will come and rescue Sabine, but no, it's not. It's like it's like a massive Star Destroyer. It's Thrawn's Star Destroyer
This
from
reveal
Rebels.
was very.
You
This
know?
reveal was very good. Like
Yes.
as camera pivots up as the yeah, you can just see how large it is, and also how
Oh
wet
yes.
and also how weathered it is as well. Like how damaged. You can see some of the drives in the back are completely broken. Like there are a couple drive
Hmm.
the big ones are broken. It's staying in the air, but it's not. It probably can't go to it can't go to
Hyperspace.
hyperspace. So yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, but yeah, it's worn. Remember the last time we saw this Star Destroyer, strong Star Destroyer, was during the Lothal battle in
Which
the
yeah, which
animations.
is like nine
Yeah.
years from where we are
Yep.
now. So like the whole all
Yeah.
the New Hope, Return of the Jedi, and sorry, Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi all happened over those years.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, it's been he's been stranded here for years. Him in Ezra. So
Mm-hmm.
which is also
Yep.
why we see all these stormtroopers in such bad shape. So there's a speculation online that they're because the red is the Night Sisters colors, that they're all wrapped up. Basically, these are wounds that have been
Mm-hmm.
healed by the Night Sisters. So these guys might be
Right.
alive, or they just might be like uh,
Zombies.
zombies, or yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I get a sense that, they mentioned the dark magic once, so I'm sure, a couple of times. So I'm sure that, even with the dwindling numbers, Thrawn will mention that later on, like it's still a pretty massive force. So it's like it's pretty impressive.
It's a big
not as
force.
yeah,
It's a big force, but it's also something someone also mentioned is that there's no navy with him. They're all stormtroopers. Like where's all the other people? Like usually there's a lot less stormtroopers on a ship this
right,
size than
right,
there are naval officers. Like there aren't any
mhm,
other officers. So like, did they all die? Was there like a giant?
probably,
Was there like a giant like fight between the naval officers and the stormtroopers? Because like his second in command, you would expect to be a naval officer, not like a stormtrooper. So like like a
hmm,
lot of things happened in the last 9 years. You can tell just by and even him here. I mean, they're making jokes online that he's gained a little bit of weight, but I think it's just the actor is not shaped like the
yeah,
animation was. But they could use that as part of the story because they also show him here, and Thrawn is like a meticulous person, but his uniform is like is worn, like the fabric is worn just because he even if he has more than one uniform, say he has two or three uniforms, he's wearing the two or three uniforms over the course of 9 years. They're gonna wear
right.
out. They're gonna wear out. So
Right,
so yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And the Enoch actually reminds me of the Gladiator, the Star Gladiator from the Gladiator movie.
yeah.
The mask, it kind of remind me of that, which is kind of cool. I think that, I think in terms of design, it's pretty cool stuff. And kind of again, like you said, kind of see the years. They've seen some years. They've seen some weariness, in them, and it's just very interesting to kind of see that this debut of Thrawn here, in this type of context. And so they talked. They kind of briefly talk, and then you see here that Sabine now sees Thrawn in the flesh, and it's kind of like a nice mini reunion, even though they're on opposite sides of the opposite sides and things like that. And it's very interesting that you don't get the sense that he wants to kill her, or even like Balin doesn't want to kill her, even though they're adversaries. So it's almost like he's almost like being strategic and saying, "Oh, I'll just give you a chance to find Ezra,"
Mm-hmm.
in some ways. Like just let him, you're small enough, and not to be a part of our plans. But it's also interesting that before this, what Balin said, that she could be of some use to us. So I don't. They really didn't answer that question in the episode, but yeah, it's kind of piques my interest to see what is he talking about.
Well,
And we remember, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, he means leading them to Ezra so they can kill both of them. Basically, that's what
Okay,
he mean, that's what he means by being used a use of being used to them. So
got it.
that's the assumption because he sends Balin and Hati after them, like to go to follow them at their own pace, so that she's not alerted to the fact that she's being followed, so that they can
Hmm.
destroy Ezra. It's not his top priority because later on we hear that, it doesn't really matter if they kill Ezra and her, and it doesn't matter if the mercenaries come back. What matters is that they leave. So
Hmm.
he wants to get rid of Ezra because Ezra stranded him here for 9 years, but like it's
Right.
not his top priority. His top priority is like escaping this galaxy. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Exactly. And I think that there's a little bit of a kind of like a stalling that's going on. Is like I felt that why didn't he just leave? Like it's just like
because he
he's
has
there, but yeah.
because he has a contract with the Night Sisters. The Night Sisters, the Night
Mm,
Sisters have been basically keeping them alive for years now, right? And like,
mhm,
and it looks like they have been allied with them by bandaging his stormtroopers here.
mm,
And later on, you see all the stormtroopers bringing dead bodies from the Night Sisters catacombs. So that
mhm.
it's a stalling thing, I guess, but it was not like random. They actually wrote it into the script. Like, what's her name? Morgan mentions that
Yeah.
I've seen the catacombs. It'll take days to move take days to move them out. So I think they're
Okay.
moving all the dead Night Sisters onto the ships because they want to move those dead bodies to the galaxy that we're used to, and the Night Sisters can bring people back to life. So I think that was
Ah.
that was the that was the bargain that they set with Thrawn, I think. So yeah,
Hmm. And then now we kind of get to the kind of the lone cowboy type of trope where Sabine is kind of off on her own, no directions whatsoever. Well, kind of a direction at the beginning, and then here nice action scene though. I think that this is pretty good action
yeah,
scene
it was good.
with Sabine. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
then she takes out the
some good
the,
stuff.
the lightsaber at the end. Yeah,
Yeah. And these guys, we kind of saw in the Jedi episode from the Mandalorian, and I think it's the same guys pretty much.
no, because this is a
They kind
completely
of
different.
no,
This is a completely different universe. So I mean, it's not universe, completely
they probably
galaxy.
brought him over. Yeah, I don't know.
No,
I mean,
I mean the,
it
the
didn't
Night
sound like
Sisters,
it.
the Night Sisters, yes, but these guys, no. No one in this galaxy except for the Night Sisters should be familiar. They should be all these should be all. I mean, they might have a similar look, but they wouldn't be the same people because we're in a completely different galaxy. None of the people here should be the same.
Okay.
None of the aliens here, none of the animals here
Mm-hmm.
either. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all this should be like new if they're in a completely different galaxy. They're not different part of the galaxy. They're in a completely different galaxy.
Right.
And there's a lot
Yeah.
of space in a galaxy. But there's like a lot of empty space between galaxies.
Right.
So yeah,
Right. I think I really like the Star Destroyer shots. There was one that was right before that you saw like them that you
here,
like
yeah,
looking
yeah.
over. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like this one really good. Like they're just like these are really really cool scenes with the Star Destroyer.
So you can see that these are all the bodies being pulled up from the catacombs. You see the canisters. Those are the bodies that they're bringing up from the catacombs. So you can see the bottom of the tower or the top of the tower is where they're pulling the bodies and they're bringing them from inside of there into the Star Destroyer. So
Hmm. 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 Yeah, and then you can definitely tell, and I think that your theory is kind of correct, or people that are online are saying that a lot of these clone troopers are being brought back from the dead in a lot of ways. Because
Hmm.
again, it wouldn't make sense if they had the red lines on their uniforms and stuff like that. So I think that they are being brought back from the
Hmm.
dead in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Brought back, or they have like maybe they're not dead, but they had like injuries that would have killed them, but the Night Sisters used their magic so that they didn't die. So like, but
Mm,
yeah, so they're being bound up by that magic.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
this
This is also, yeah,
this
go
is
ahead.
real. I was gonna say this CGI is actually pretty good. This thing looks like it's actually there to me.
Yeah.
This and I was the stuff like that sometimes takes me out, but like they did a really good job on those shots.
Yeah. And of course, before the scene, there was some type of tongue in cheek, saying that we've seen it before, but it was still kind of cute to kind of see that kind of playful tongue in cheek between them two, that
Mm-hmm.
he's a coward,
Mm-hmm.
and you abandoned me and stuff. But that was pretty funny. I would say, kind of chuckle there. Here you can see that the beast kind of redeemed itself by finding this new type of species, new type of alien creature. They kind of reminded me of Ewoks in some ways,
Yeah,
just because
I
not
know
in
people.
stature,
I know people are probably going to say that they had to introduce some sort of cute element to sell toys, but these are not as cute as Ewoks. So like,
they're like kind of like turtles in some way. They're
sort of
like
like
they're like,
turtle bugs. They're like it's more like
yeah, turtle
more
bugs.
like snails. They're like snails. That
Mm,
more like snails because of the protruding eyes than turtles. But yeah, yeah,
okay. Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
and it was pretty interesting to kind of see. This is kind of, again, we've seen this stuff before, language exchange, all this stuff. We've seen it before in Star Wars, and nothing too kind of overly dramatic or anything like that. And you can see that Balin and Shin are kind of looking around, seeing, like, kind of like
what's
curious. Oh, she
looking at
survived.
she's looking at Sabine's battle here
Yeah.
that she survived. Yeah,
Right. And then kind of like the whole this Godfather reference here is like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This is
yeah.
kind of interesting again. So it's like, okay, let's try to use them in some
He says
ways
enemy of my
to
enemy
see
is my
what's
friend for now. So yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So again, it's these little things here, again, generic stuff that, again, we've seen before. Um, and they kind of again build the anticipation here. I think they kind of drawn it out a little too much, but
hmm
I forgive them for this. They did kind of draw it out a little bit. With the here's the uh, being reunited with Ezra right here.
yeah,
So yeah, yeah, that was I mean, touching, very touching scene. Because it's like they haven't seen each other in years, and so yeah, it's pretty nice. It is pretty nice, and you can see that Ezra's kind of like older, much older, with the
yeah,
beard, scruffy hair,
yeah.
so yeah.
There are comments online that he basically looks like his father because we've seen pictures of his father with a beard as well.
Ah,
Yeah, so he grew up to look like his father basically. So it's that is interesting. Um,
yeah,
I think this is where he gets alerted from the Night Sisters that Ahsoka is coming.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, in the previous conversation, she did not tell him like what she sacrificed to come here. Like she's like, oh, let's just talk about that later. Sabine didn't tell him.
Oh
So
yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah.
think he's going to be very upset that she came and she let let Thrawn get away, or potentially letting Thrawn get away because he risked his life and also wasted 9 years of his life to get back. Sorry, to take Thrawn off of the board, and
Right.
she undid that. So yeah, we'll see whether or not there'll be some conflict between the two of them next week.
Right.
when he finds out what she did, and
Right.
at the beginning of this episode, Ahsoka also talks to Hu Yang about that as well.
Hmm.
That she went willingly. So yeah,
Right. 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 I mean, the thing is that I think that because of the attachment to Ezra, I think that that kind of made her choice. And Hu Yang did comment in that that might have been the only choice that she could have made. But I think
yeah, but
that
she's like,
yeah.
but as Thrawn says, you're risking the entire galaxy for a person. It's
Hmm.
selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's selfish. I mean, not a work, not a town, not a country, not a world, the entire galaxy. So yeah, it wasn't a wise choice. I mean, hopefully we see that it doesn't lead to anything terrible, but who knows? Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I'll be pretty intrigued as to how they're going to move forward with this because we only have 2 episodes left. So I don't know kind of if they're going to weave in some of the video games, some of there's a couple of books that tells about kind of like the Empire's end, um, the aftermath of the fall of the Empire. And
hmm
so even then there were some battles that were happening between the Empire and the New Republic. So there are books that I think there's at least 4 or 5 books that talk about that time between 6 and 7. So
I mean,
it's a yeah, yeah,
they don't.
they're
I
yeah,
know they don't feel like they have to follow the books. All that stuff is called legends now. So
right,
what they do is basically just pick and choose what they want.
right.
So maybe they'll pull some of that
These are
stuff in, maybe
but
not.
the thing is that Nathan, that these are newer books. And I think there's like a series of 3 that were kind of
I mean, like
newer.
the aftermath books or so.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
aftermath books, exactly.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I don't know how much they're going to incorporate that, or
hmm
if they're going to incorporate that, or if they are, doing a new story. It's all kind of again speculation, and whether or not again they're going to try to explore this time period or not, because we are going to go back to season 2 we are going to have Andor season 2, so that's going to go back to kind of like pre pre
Before
Rogue
the
One,
rebellion, like
right?
it's basically the same time period, or actually, it's a little bit before Rebels. The animated
Right.
series. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So again, let's see kind of how Filoni and Lucas is going to play around with kind of these stories and kind of fit it into the Star Wars lore. So we'll see, and it's going to be very interesting to kind of find out as we go along.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, just looking forward to what will happen when Ashoka shows up in the whale, because they know she's coming. So
Right.
let's see what the conflict looks like there, and see whether or not Thrawn actually escapes this galaxy, or if he's going to be stranded there. Like yeah, and if he gets back to the other galaxy. So
Okay.
looking
All
forward
right.
to it. Yeah.
All right. So that's what we think. So please tell us what you think. Like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. And we will see you in the next video next
All
time.
right. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.